It's like a permanent vacation. It's almost an addiction to the weather, the food, the lifestyle. And I'm boring. You got to have boxes. And what those boxes are, you have certain things that are make and break. For me, I don't like snow. I'm not a winter guy. What I always tell myself, and I used to count t-shirt days. Sometimes in Southeast Asia, I would say, okay, it's a 3 t-shirt day. I'm going through 3 t-shirts today because I'm going to soak right through. But I would say it's better than snow.
So today we're excited to have Tyson on the channel, and he's had multiple decade experience in different parts of the world, and we're excited to have him to tell his story. So Tyson, what's your home country, and where are you sitting right now?
I'm an American citizen, and I am sitting in northeastern United States.
Have you lived overseas before? And if so, what countries, and for how long?
Yeah, I mean, if I count it up, I originally left in 2003, and I have been in and out of mostly Asia, Thailand, Vietnam, Korea, Malaysia, Cambodia, and some of these multiple times. Varying levels of success in each one.
What does it feel like living overseas? How does life feel different than when you're, in the US?
The amount of freedom that we have overseas, whether it's a social freedom, I don't want to downplay the fact that part of that freedom comes from being a Westerner. They look at us with a certain standard that may or may not be deserved. I try to live up to it. Cost of living, the food, the weather, all of it is. I'm assuming when people move to Florida and they just play golf all day. I mean, obviously, I'm not old enough to be retired, and I still work. But it's like a permanent vacation.
So much time in Southeast Asia, and you're back in the U.S. now. Why did you come back?
I was in Borneo. I put a lot into a business, and the financial partner pulled out last minute. So I had to come back to kind of regroup. So it wasn't that I wanted to come back. It's that I had to come back, and it was the easiest and most obvious choice.
Okay, I've experienced that myself. I know what that feels like. So once you got back, did you miss being overseas?
Immediately. Immediately. I mean, as soon as I get into U.S. airspace, and not to say that, again, I love the country and I consider myself somewhat patriotic and stuff, but it's almost an addiction to the weather, the food, the lifestyle. And I'm boring. When I lived in the middle of Bangkok, I had an apartment, between 𝗖𝗑𝐿 and Nana Plaza. For people who don't know, those are entertainment districts, as we shall say. And they said, you must be out every night. I said, usually I'm in bed by 10. They're like, what? I said, yeah, I like to get up at 6. I do my cardio in the morning. But you're in the most, I said, yeah. I said, it's available if I want it. I don't usually want it. I said, but I love the city, and I loved it in the morning. I liked at 5:30 a.m. when your people are putting out the fruit stalls and getting their carts, and I would go get coffee. And young lady that I was seeing, hey, let's go for a walk, before we even start our day and have breakfast. Yeah, it was funny because the reason most people go over there was the opposite of what I was there for.
And I'm with you on the morning thing. It's so beautiful. So are you planning to move overseas again now? And if so, do you know where and when? Do you have that in mind already?
I have a few options. I have a friend that's in my industry in Cambodia, but I would have to wait until October. I've had a soft offer from India. I've never been there. This would be my first time. That looks very positive. It looks to be decent money. As I am getting older, I understand that I have to have more security, and my health is going to be something that I have to worry about a little bit more than I have.
And so how will you know when you're ready to leave again?
As far as do you ever know? I mean, I would caution people. You may never have enough money depending on your lifestyle. And I know there's people that have gone over with just a few $100s and they've been okay. I would not suggest that. Try and think and plan a little farther ahead and see how much, you would need to live.
Many people often want to supplement their income when they move overseas. So they're looking to do whatever, teach English or start some kind of online business. It's not unusual. It's not like a clean break like it used to be where, you work till 65, get your pension and everything's clear. I think there's some uncertainty in the world now. And people are looking for ways to help, buttress their financial situation, no matter their age, really.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That's one thing I would say is try and have multiple streams of revenue. Try, even if you are retired, have skill. I mean, unless you're to the point where you're unable, you should be able to do something, even if it's volunteer type work, just to keep you active.
For someone who's done this multiple times and has quite a bit of experience under their belt, is there anything that you would do differently or something you'd like to share, how you might prepare differently this time for someone new?
If you're going to do some type of business, unless you're like 100% online, you're going to have to put roots down. Now, I do know digital nomads, and that's relatively new, especially those of us who are middle-aged to older age. The ability to plan more now is there. I mean, there's sites, there's YouTube videos like your own, and you also have your website where, you tell people how to bank, how to do, there were so many times I just left. I said, I got a few $100, I got a few $1,000, I'm out, and I'll figure it out when I get there. Wouldn't do that, especially as the world gets smaller, it also gets in some ways tighter. But as far as just living like a very carefree life, I think it requires a lot more planning now. And that's one thing that I'm trying to do. I watch a lot more videos. There's a lot more people like yourself who have these videos on, hey, if you're going to do it this way.
Yeah.
I'm lucky my parents are still alive. I can depend on them. I have family I can depend on. Not everybody has that. And especially as we age, we're not going to have that. So we better figure out how to, maybe that learning curve also for some of the older people. One thing about this lifestyle is, and maybe that's just where we are with modern life, the only thing you can depend on is change. It is going to change on a fairly regular basis.
That's true. It seems like the change cycle is like 5 years now, and it seems like things used to take 10 or 20 years to completely change. And so you're learning more new things more often now. So it sounds like you would prefer to just live in Southeast Asia and not in the US. Would you come back and visit? And if so, how often?
Well, as my parents, they are elderly, I'd love to visit at least once a year. It's a hard flight. I've done trips that took almost 2 days. With layovers. They're like, how do you stay on a plane for 16, 18 hours at a shot? And I'm like, you got to mentally prepare yourself. Southeast Asia is still, I love it. There's just so much about it, and each country is unique, and each country has its pluses and minuses. Compared to the US, I just, Southeast Asia for me is probably the number one. But hey, this new adventure, and I'm also looking at, things like India. One of the changes. They're a lot cleaner than they used to be. Transportation's getting easier. I think there's always going to be some level of options. If people who like Four Seasons, I've spent a few months in Georgia. Georgia's a great option, and Albania and some of these other places are really nice.
Yeah, we're traveling through Eastern Europe right now, and it's very beautiful, no doubt about it. And some of the countries here are much cheaper than the US, as you've experienced. There's a lot of choices around the world, and I think the key is to experiment a little bit and find your own personal adventure. It sounds like you're pretty happy with Southeast Asia. A lot of people are, but I think everyone has a different feeling when they go to a place, and I think it's important to do a little bit of exploring before you settle in on a place. If where you are, start doing vacations to other countries nearby, or even other parts of that country, and you find it interesting, it just makes the whole experience better of being in whatever part of the world you're in. So I also love my country. All my family and friends growing up are here in America. And it's I feel lucky. I feel like I won the birth lottery because I have a passport that can go to most countries without even a visa, and I've been able to earn enough in my life, so been able to make some choices where it's easier, for me to be overseas. Whereas if I'd grown up in wherever, Eastern Europe or Southeast Asia or South America, I may not have had the same opportunity that I do. So I'm very thankful about my birth lottery. But I'm with you in terms of there's something about Southeast Asia in particular and the idea of being outside your home country that's sort of adventurous and exciting. And I think you kind of have to do it before you know and decide for yourself, because some people just, it doesn't take for them. They'll like one part of the world but not others. And some people like everywhere. I mean, we seem to like everywhere we go. So how critical would you say if somebody's if they're 5 or 10 years out before their retirement age, how critical would you say it is developing some sort of income source that would sustain living overseas, if there were inflation and without having to return to their home country if inflation were to continue? Or
I think it's essential. There's going to be a point in time where maybe your family's not going to be there, depending on the age of the person. We never know what's going to happen globally. Financially, I think a skill is incredibly important, whether it's, like yourself, which, doesn't seem to be like someone who, I met a guy, where is he now? I'm not even sure, but I met him in Nha Trang, and He was a tennis coach and he plays a lot of guitar. He's a fantastic guitar player, and he could probably teach people how to play guitar, where, you know, you can actually teach people how to live outside the US and teach people how to make money while traveling, and you make great videos and stuff. Things that maybe you wouldn't think are a skill, maybe you'll explore that. Like you said, I think one of your courses is how to make money off your hobbies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be essential. And I also think it's important. I don't understand, and I never understood the guys, and I'll use Bangkok as an example because that's where I spent the most of my time in the last almost 2 decades, who find a bar stool, they sit on it, and that's it. They walk a block from where they live, they hike up, you know, and I guess if you're going to do it anywhere, you might as well do it in a tropical country. But if that's, you know, all that you want out of life, I don't see how that's much different from doing that in your home country other than the cost. Again, for a lot of Westerners, I guess it would be the ladies if they are single, but doesn't make sense to me. Wouldn't be what I would do. I think people who are very active, I've known people that were pretty advanced age that, you know, they traveled still, they took adventures, they learned things, they took classes, they gave classes. And the money, yeah, I mean, money, unfortunately, you can't live. Money equates somewhat to freedom. You know, I've met some very, very wealthy people who retired early, and having a certain amount of money that doesn't almost matter where they live, then that's a golden ticket. A lot of times it comes down to, are you able to afford to live there for the long term? Are you able to afford the long-term visas? Some of these require, like the Malaysian scheme, and I think they've just changed that for retirement.
Yeah, and then, like you said, they change these rules all the time. So one of the things we've enjoyed is slow traveling. So, and it's avoided some of these headaches, like going and getting a long-term visa, a retirement visa, or any other kind of visa, because most countries will allow Americans to stay for 30, 60, 90, 180 days. By slow traveling around a region of the world, we just pop in, and if they want to give us a month or two, we'll spend our money there for a month. They want to give us 3 months, we'll spend our money there for 3 months. But by moving along, like places like in Thailand, where they're, you know, starting to tax expats now, we stay out of Thailand. If we're in Thailand less than 180 days of the year, we don't owe any taxes. That's one of the other benefits of slow travel. And plus, you're never really getting bored. Boredom, for me, I'm not everyone, but for me, boredom comes out of routine. I like change. I like learning new things, seeing new places, experiencing new food, meeting people, hiking, swimming, you know, snorkeling, and I like exploring the world. So for me, slow travel is kind of a natural. The idea of just hanging out in one city, I sort of see that as my old life when I had to work and had to go back and forth in the car, and then I had a week or two off, or, you know, if I'm lucky, 3 weeks a year. I look back at, you know, that is a negative. I like the freedom I have to move around and slow travel. But, you know, I'm sure as I age, I'll probably want to start spending more time in each place, maybe 6 months, a year, before moving along. And maybe that's when I'll start looking at which country has the most interesting retirement visa or whatever. But for me, for now, I'm enjoying this. But you know, I'm a little bit unusual. Most people want to take their show and move it to another country, park it, you know, and just stay there and maybe do vacations from their vacations a few times a year. We're all different. That's the beauty of life. I think, you know, the whole idea of exploration really is to really find out what it is you love, rather than assume that what you think you'll love, what country you think you'll love, or how you spend your time, you think you'll like to do it this way. You know, maybe your whole life you dreamed about buying a cabin on a lake and fishing every day. Then you buy a ticket, go to Southeast Asia, and you're in these tropical waters and wandering around these beautiful rainforests, and you realize, hey, wait a second, maybe sitting by the lake and fishing every day is not as exciting as I thought. Or maybe you'll go home after 3, 4 months and say, you know what, I got to eat that. I want to eat that home food, and I want to eat it you know, the same foods I grew up with and hang out with my buddies. We're all different. I think that the point is really to live your life and find out what it is that you really love by experimenting. That's what I think is interesting about what you've done, because you really just, I mean, you've done a lot of travel and checked stuff out, and you're not really wondering what it's going to be like. You already know, and now you're just trying to plan to get back. And then of course you'll visit family or whatever, but you already know. I mean, you've lived in both worlds, multiple worlds, and I think that's key. You kind of live those multiple lives and you know what you want. And there's a lot to be said for that. And so you feel like you're a Southeast Asian guy?
Yeah, I think so. That has resonated the most with me, and it clicks. You got to have boxes, and what those boxes are, you have certain things that are make and break. For me, I don't like snow. I'm not a winter guy. What I always tell myself, and I used to count t-shirt days. Sometimes in Southeast Asia, I would say, okay, it's a 3 t-shirt day. I'm going through 3 t-shirts today because I'm going to soak right through. But I would say it's better than snow. I would always remind myself when I got hot and bothered or whatever, or if the aircon went down because there was an electrical outage and you're sitting there and 80 some degree heat and 3 o'clock in the morning and it's you're miserable. You say, well, it's better than snow, and that's a make or break for me. The other boxes, yeah, some people want to be on a mountain or on a beach or, like you said, on a lake fishing or even in the ocean fishing, wherever. Is that and how many boxes are you going to click? And for Southeast Asia, I thought the food, most of the food. There's very few places where I can't eat. I'm an omnivore, so I don't. I mean, as long as I can get it healthy, and as that's really not that difficult to do. I love the food in the region. I love the ability to travel within the region. So everything's very close, and they all can be very, very different. From an outsider view, it might seem very similar, but Macau is totally different to Singapore, to Lombok or Bali. It's a theme, but it's a variation of a theme. So that theme, that Southeast Asian kind of syncs with me. Where I know the people who live in Central and South America, it's similar. They say, okay, well, Guatemala, and then I'll go to Nicaragua and enjoy that. But that theme is there, but that's the theme that they like.
Exactly.
Probably a little easier because if they learn Spanish, then it's a lot easier to get around and speak one language as opposed to Southeast Asia.
And they're a little closer to their family, and if they have time zones matter, it's a little easier to talk to their grandkids, or if they have a job online, the hours are more daylight, that kind of thing. That's what a lot of the reasons I hear people like it. We also love Latin America. It's a beautiful place, no doubt about it.
I like I said, I haven't spent a lot of time there, but I enjoyed my time there. I would love to spend even more at some point, and maybe I'll change because I know it's funny because, and you're probably in the same boat where you collect these friends, whether they're online friends or they're friends in real life, and you only meet up every once in a while, but they are doing that same thing where they're traveling. I know a guy, he's a retired chiropractor, and he house sits. So he doesn't even, and I don't know if he's using an agency. I'd have to ask him. Man, some of his pictures from Mexico, I didn't even know there were places like this in Mexico. Just stunningly beautiful little towns. I know a couple digital nomads that I met in Tbilisi. They're younger than me, but we get on. We have similar interests, and they just follow the sun. They travel around. He's British. His girlfriend's Polish, and wherever they want to end up, and they pretty much the slow travel. What you guys are doing. But he works. They both work online. Yeah. So the photos that they send back are just amazing.
Well, Tyson, thanks for coming on the channel and sharing your story. Really appreciate it. I think there's all different types of people in the world, and some of us identify with some more than others. That's why I like to have guests. My story, people know it already. It's great to hear your story, and we wish you all the best. Come back and see us in 6 months or a year, would you?
Yeah, well, thank you. I really appreciate it. You have so much, so many resources, and I need to check out a lot more. I've only probably just scratched the surface of your videos, but your informational videos. And
if you like my free ebook about how I fired my boss and traveled the world for 17 years and how I pay for things, come to Vagabond Buddha and grab the free ebook.
Could you please help me with something? You've probably watched our guest star interviews on our guest star playlist. I interview people that have retired overseas. They share valuable information such as cost of living, safety concerns, finding love overseas, healthcare experiences, and money problems. If you'd like to share something that you have learned living overseas, please come to vagabondbuddha.com, click the More tab, click the Contact Me tab, and tell me about what you would like to share with my channel.
For my top places to retire in Southeast Asia, click the video in the upper right-hand corner of your screen right now.